right, welcome back. So in this module, we're going to talk about campaign structure, number of keywords, what else?
We're going to talk about ad groups and the best way to utilize them. We're going to talk about portfolios and how to use them for better organization, and then also give you a playbook that helps you name your campaigns. So when it comes to Amazon reporting and all of the different levers and layers, your campaign naming actually matters. Being able to hop into Ad Console and find the specific product you're advertising or the specific style of campaign is really important. So understanding a naming convention that allows you to use Ad Console more efficiently, I think will unlock a lot of opportunities for our brands.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to go about this. And I know some people might put in the ASIN as like the name of the campaign. There's nothing per se wrong with that. But then think about it. Every time you want to go find that, unless you have a photographic memory, you're probably going to have to now take the extra step of looking up what that ASIN is, copying it,
You
and
don't
then
memorize all
paste
the
it.
ASINs you managed?
I do not. I know the last three digits, like our coffin shelf. It's 212, so I can type in 212 and it'll come up. But other than that, like it's pretty much impossible to memorize a whole ASIN. And so how you name this really is going to could end up meaning hours and hours of work over the course of a year, just that you're saving yourself just with this aspect by itself. So let's go ahead and hop into how we can start tackling this.
All right. So now we're talking about campaign naming and setup. And Bradley and I have chatted about this quite a bit. There's a million different ways you can structure your campaigns and set them up. There is a ton of different playbooks, and it's all really dependent on personal preference, whether or not you're using a software, or just how many products you have. All of these things are going to change how you should structure your campaigns. So, we're going to give you kind of the overview in the playbook and chat through some of these best practices just so you have a good reference point in knowing how many keywords should I put in my campaign? How should I name my campaigns? All of those questions. And just know there's no perfect answer, and there's really no perfect right or wrong. It's really dependent on your personal preferences when it comes to naming and setup. Now, at this point, we've gone through how to actually log into Ad Console and create a campaign. So keep some of those tips in mind as we dive into this section. So I wanted to throw in this screenshot. If you have one product, campaign naming is easy. We have an advertising console account where I just pulled 44,000 campaigns. Now, it's in apparel. They sell gear across the NFL, the NCAA. They have everything from t-shirts to hoodies to blankets. So you can see how difficult this can be to scale. So when I'm giving these recommendations, I started with the most difficult account in mind, and you can boil it down to as simple as you need for your personal preference. So, first, let's talk about how many ASINs do I put in a campaign? That's probably the first question I always get. Now, we personally recommend really only putting one ASIN in a campaign. But let's say you have variations. I'm using this example right here. Both of these are collagen peptides. They both have hyaluronic acid and they both have vitamin C. A lot of people would put them into the same campaign. Now, the reason I'm saying we should not put these in the same campaign is because the search intent is different. The keywords that I'm going to be using for strawberry lemonade may be different than the keywords I am using for unflavored. There's a few different aspects here that's going to be really important. One, maybe the price point's different, the search intent's different, but we could put these in the same campaign and go and target collagen peptides. That's perfectly fine. But when you segment them out, it gives you a lot more control over the keyword intent. So, one of the first recommendations we have is when you create a campaign, only put one ASIN in the campaign if the search intent's different. As we see here, strawberry lemonade is very different, or strawberry lemon is very different than unflavored. Now, that being said, what if I'm selling a white t shirt? Is the search volume different from small white t-shirt to large white t-shirt? Probably not. People don't usually start with sizing in mind because they're going to assume the listing is going to have sizes. So if I have 50 white t-shirts, it's just variated by sizes, I can put all of those ASINs in one campaign because the keywords I'm going to be targeting are the exact same. Now, what if one was a V-neck and one was a crew neck? People search by V-neck and crew neck. That's differentiated. So I'm going to separate out those into two very different campaigns because the keywords I'm going to be targeting are different. Another value add is when an Amazon advertising sponsored product placement is showing up on the page, if you have 10 ASINs in a campaign, only one of the ASINs is going to show up in that specific ad. So you cannot necessarily dominate the search with all of your products. It's a really small nuance. We'll talk more in the later sections about that, but it's another value add with having single ASIN campaigns. Now, in terms of campaign naming, here are some of the basics that we like to kind of guide by. I personally like to make sure that my campaigns are really easy to navigate when I'm logged into Advertising Console or if I'm in my software. So I personally put a product identifier in every single campaign name. The reason being is Bradley and I've joked about this. Most people don't memorize their ASIN. You typically can't open up your campaign and type in your ASIN and immediately figure out what campaigns have that ASIN. It's really difficult. So I like to put what we call the product identifier. Product identifier is just an easy way for you to identify that product. So right here, as you can see, I put strawberry lemonade, but it's the strawberry lemon. I can easily log into my advertising console and search strawberry lemon and find all of the campaigns in which I'm advertising this product. If I was using the other ASIN we showed, I would do unflavored. Again, the reason being is so you can easily navigate Ad Console and build out your reporting and figure out what campaigns are advertising what ASINs. Now, that being said, we do typically also put the ASIN in our campaign name. I believe, Bradley, you do not put the ASIN in your campaign name. At that point, it's just personal preference. I like having the ASIN in there so that way if the brand that I'm working with sends me an ASIN, I can still easily find it. It's just easy. It also makes for incredibly easy reporting and tagging later on. The last thing that we do put in there as well is the type of strategy we're running. And this could be a few different sections. You could do Helium 10 profitability. You could do ranking. You could do your branded terms or brand defense. The reason you want to put that strategy in there is some of your campaigns may be optimized in a different fashion. Now, we've talked about bid management, and we're going to dive into some different bid rules you can apply, but not all campaigns should be created equal. If you're pulling keywords from Helium 10 and focused on profitability, that should be in your campaign names. That way you know your ROAS or ACoS should be whatever your target is. That way you can quickly scroll and say, all of my ranking campaigns are performing X, all of my profitability campaigns are performing Y. This makes things really easy to navigate. There's a few other breakouts you could do. You could do ad type or creative. So if I'm running a sponsored brand ad, I could put SB. If it's a sponsored brand video ad, maybe SBV. That just helps you again navigate Ad Console. You can quickly type in and filter and build portfolios without having to download all of your reports and filter beyond that. Now, the other ones, again, ASIN, quick and easy navigation, big catalogs, and for reporting purposes, strategy, super important to include. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is whether or not you create multiple ad groups. I get this question all the time and I see it frequently. I always recommend one campaign with one parent ASIN and one ad group. Now, there's a few reasons for this. We use the coffin shelf as an example in this campaign. If I create one campaign and I have multiple ad groups in there, you cannot control where your budget is going. So if I have a $100 a day budget on my campaign, and let's say I have an ad group for broad match, an ad group for phrase match, and an ad group for exact match. As you can see, my 50% is incredibly high. Let's pretend that it's 50% ACoS for ease of management here. That is incredibly, incredibly high, not my goal. I cannot control my budget and say, I need this ad group to get the less budget. Amazon chooses how your budget is distributed. So you lose a lot of control when you run multiple ad groups. Amazon's just going to give your budget to whatever's spending the most. On the flip side, if you were to segment these out in this fashion, you can say the exact same keyword breakout. You have broad match, phrase match, exact match, but you can turn up or turn down your budget as needed. Maybe your $2 ROAS isn't within your goals. You're not very happy about it. Let's go ahead and decrease my budget while I optimize my bids. On the flip side, my budget or my campaign is doing really well, my $5 ROAS, let's go ahead and increase the budget on that campaign. That can help you be a much more efficient and also scale what is working and turn down what is not working. It's one of the biggest reasons that we recommend breaking out your campaigns in this fashion. Now, another reason you could break out your campaigns in this fashion, and as we lightly discussed earlier, is because you can change the strategy behind those campaigns. So maybe I have a campaign and all of my keywords, I did fantastic keyword research, and I know that they're going to be really profitable for me. It's going to have a $5 ROAS, it's going to be really strong. I'm going to put a $50 budget because that campaign is going to perform well. On the flip side, maybe I have ranking keywords that are really competitive and the conversion rate's good, but they're expensive, so they don't do as well. I'm going to set aside a separate budget on that campaign. So we're going to move my budget over there. And then maybe I have, my new keywords and they're not doing as well as I'd like. We're still testing, we're still optimizing. I'm just going to give them a $10 budget. And then once they start performing well, I can up that to a $20 budget because they're now performing within expectations. That is why it's so important to segment things out. If you create one campaign, throw all of your keywords in there, Amazon's just going to give your budget to whatever they think needs the budget, which is usually the highest volume, highest spend terms, not always the most profitable terms. When you break things out in this fashion, that gives you a lot more control over your optimization and where that budget is being distributed. Now, here's a really quick example of a campaign and an account we audited. They did 3 ad groups, as you can see. We have ad group, they broke out by match type, which is pretty normal for an account. We've talked about this. Broad match typically drives the most sales. It's the broadest out of all of them. But as you can see, I don't have a lot of control over where my budget's going. Amazon's giving a lot of my budget to the broad match because, again, I'm bidding on a ton more keywords or search terms there. It's showing up more, but it's not exactly my most profitable. I have no way of optimizing my budget distribution because budgeting is at the campaign level. But if I took all of these ad groups and broke them out to their own campaigns, I could lower my budget where I wanted and increase my budget where I can see I have a little bit more profitability. That's going to give me a really good opportunity to control optimization much better. Now, the next big question that we always get asked is how many keywords do I put in a campaign? And I thought this was a really good example to help showcase this. This is an old campaign from an account that we had audited. They put 129 keywords in a campaign. The problem with that is if you have that many keywords, they're not all going to collect data because your budget's potentially too low. And here's what it looks like directly within the campaign. As you can see, as I scroll down, my top keywords are getting spend and impressions. But as I scroll down, there's hundreds of keywords that are never collecting data. They're really relevant, but my budget is too low for the amount of keywords that I put in a campaign. So when someone says 1 keyword per campaign is the right way or 20 keywords in a campaign is the right way, it's not that easy. It really comes down to what is your budget. So I put together a few quick examples to help people understand and visualize that. If you have a $50 a day budget and you're bidding $1 on all of your keywords and you put 10 keywords in a campaign, that means you're going to get around 5 clicks a day per keyword. If you have 1 keyword in that campaign, it's going to get 50 clicks. If you have 5 keywords, it's going to get 10 clicks. On the flip side, let's say we only have a $5 a day budget. You're only going to get anywhere from 1 to 5 clicks if you have 1 to 10 keywords in a campaign. It's going to take a lot of time to collect data. As we talked about in other modules, it really depends on your bid, how much you can afford, and the traffic. And we kind of discussed, like, let's say you're at a trade show. If 5 people decide to walk up and view your product or click on your ad, that's not enough to decide whether or not the product's a good fit, right? We need a lot of data. We typically recommend collecting at least 20 clicks on a keyword before you make a decision. So you can kind of do the reverse math here. If you have a $500 a day budget, you're collecting data really fast. You're going to get 50 clicks per keyword or 500 clicks per keyword, which means you're going to be able to optimize and scale a lot quicker. If you have a really low budget, and let's say I have a $500 budget and I upload 100 keywords, that's not enough budget to actually drive coverage for those keywords. So it's really important to understand how many keywords you are uploading and bidding on in general and what your budget is. If you're early stages and you have a small budget, you should probably be really selective and only start with a small batch of keywords. So that way you can collect enough data on those keywords. If you have a big budget, and I've managed brands that had $1 million a month budgets, they can bid on every single keyword possible because they can afford to. They have a large enough budget to cover all of those keywords. So if someone tells you only one keyword per campaign, or that 17.3 is the perfect amount of keywords per campaign, don't necessarily believe them. It's really dependent on your budget, the keywords you're targeting, and what you are bidding on. Because in this example, as you can see, if I decide to bid 50 cents, then my budget's going to go a lot further, but maybe I'm not going to get that many impressions. On the flip side, maybe my bid is $7, then I'm going to need to have a much higher budget to afford all of those bids that I'm going to be placing.
All right. Excellent stuff. So what are you guys going to name your campaign? Are you going to have some campaigns called the Destiny campaign, maybe the Bradley campaign? Whatever you decide, you now at least are armed with some information on what to do. What's the next group of modules that we're going to be covering?
So we've given you the playbook to manage everything on your own relatively well within Ad Console, but at the end of the day, you shouldn't have to. And that's where we're going to dive into the conversation of when is software best for me? What are the difference from using a tool like Helium 10 Ads versus just logging into Ad Console?
All right, so let's go ahead and hop into it. We'll see you in the next group of modules.